As a kid, I used to dream about being in the movies and on TV, and today I get to do that all the time, working on some of the biggest Hollywood blockbusters of the silver screen as an international stuntman. Looking back over a 20-year career, some of the fondest memories I have were working on the Harry Potter series of films, and so I thought I'd share with you my own very personal inside story into the making of one of the biggest and most successful franchises in cinematic history. The Harry Potter films were some of the most beloved of a generation. I loved reading the books, and when I first heard that they were making them into films, I just knew that I had to be a part of it. The first Harry Potter film was released in 2001 and was a phenomenal success. Back then I was just a relatively new recruit to the British Stunt Register, just trying to get a look in as a stuntman. Now, the UK film industry was a completely different climate than it is today. There were far fewer opportunities to make your name. And the stunt industry in this country has always been a very close, tight-knit community and very difficult to break into, especially back then, as some of the older, more established performers and coordinators really resented the new blood coming through. So it was really difficult to show what you had to offer. But when you did get the opportunity, you had to be ready and you had to be good, or it quite literally might be another few years before you got the opportunity again. Now, I would have done absolutely anything to be part of the Harry Potter films, but back then, without a magic wand, it just seemed completely out of my reach. I'd gradually been working more and more since joining the Stunt Register, and in July 2001, I heard that top stunt coordinator Greg Powell was auditioning for young-looking, small acrobatic performers to be part of the Quidditch team in the new film Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I wanted to be part of the Harry Potter phenomenon so badly I could taste it. I was the right size with the right skill set, and riding around on broomsticks seemed almost as magical as the movies themselves. Daydreaming about life at Hogwarts simply didn't cut it for me. So with a bit more research, I found out that stunt coordinator and ex-British gymnast Jeff Davis was actually supplying gymnasts for the casting. And I know Jeff from my competitive days on the gymnastics circuit, so I gave him a call to find out if he'd forgotten about me. He said he hadn't, but he thought that I was too old for the brief. Ouch. But I convinced Jeff with a close shave and the right clothes, then I could look a lot younger. And he thought it was a great idea that I meet Greg anyway for my career. But with less than 12 hours to go to the casting, it was out of his hands to put me on the casting list in time for the casting at Leavesden Studios in Hertfordshire the following day. So he said I'd have to call Greg myself. Well, Greg Powell is a huge man and an intimidating character if you don't know him. And I tried his phone that evening, but it was late and it was switched off. So I decided to take fate by the horns, get up early at the crack of dawn the next morning and head off to Leavesden Studios in Hertfordshire anyway and call Greg on the way. Well, I did manage to get hold of Greg eventually, and I asked if I could come along to the audition. Greg immediately asked me, "How tall are you?" And I said 5'6", and he's like, "Well, that's not very small, is it?" Which was a real slap in the face, because all my adult life I've been told that that was really small. But I just replied with a wimpy "oh," and expected him to tell me to get lost. But actually, he was really nice, and he said, "Well, if you can come along and make it, then do so, because you just never know." Well, I was thrilled, but I tried to sound cool when he said, "Do you think you can get here on time?" By simply saying, yeah, because I didn't have the heart to tell him that I was actually already outside the studio gates. I was so nervous sitting in the canteen of the studio while the casting assistant measured all the hopeful candidates. And I shamelessly lied about my age on my casting form, because at that time I was 28 years old, but I was auditioning for a 14-year-old boy. So yeah, I told a few porcupines. We had our pictures taken and then we were taken to the set. Well, walking into the Great Hall for the first time was pure magic for me. To see the words on the page come to life, down to the minutest detail, was like a dream come true. The next part of the audition was to actually read part of the script for the film's director, Chris Columbus. And I remember being beside myself with nerves, having to do dialogue in front of one of the industry's biggest names. And I think I did an okay performance, and I could see Chris looking me up and down quizzically while I did my lines, which I didn't fluff. And I knew he was going to ask me my age, and of course he did. And of course I lied and made myself out to be a lot younger. But I thought my performance was good, and I thought that maybe the physical attributes needed for the part would outweigh the age thing. But anyway, we were sent off to the canteen and we waited for the verdict. Eventually Greg came back with the casting director, and there were 3 names read from the list, and I wasn't one of them. But I was really proud of my tenacity and chutzpah to actually get to audition for the movie, and one of the biggest stunt coordinators in the business that day. So I was really, really proud of myself. But although I didn't get the part that day, it was going to take another 6 years before I was actually playing Quidditch for real at Hogwarts.